All right. Yes, Jeff Carroll. About to say, yo, Jeff. That's my dating coach name. But Jeff Carroll here, Sci-Fi Express Lane. Today, I want to talk to you about finishing the story in comic books. It's probably more so in comic books than anything. So, like, subscribe, share, and then afterwards comment. All right. So here we go. When I got into comic books, I had, started making movies first, and then to help sell my movie or help me sell, fund my trips to these festivals, because my second movie was getting accepted in kind of every festival that I applied it to, and it was in Houston, it was in England, it was up and down the coast, New York, you name it, right? So I wanted to, do something to help me fund this my trips, and I made a comic book. And at the time, I didn't know what a one-shot was. Didn't know what comic book lengths were. I just knew how to tell stories, right? And I did a comic that actually had 2 short stories, all right? Somebody told me, my illustrator, Eric Allen Nelson, told me, do 25 pages. So I did 2-part story. And then I did another 2-part story. And actually, the second one was a 2-part story as well. But they were both connected, and practically all 4 of the stories are connected. They progress. So years went by. I'd done a couple of screeners. At the time, people were doing screeners like 10 pages to send to a publishing company, just to show, And I really think if I'd have got any of those books, Halloween or Vamp 5 Vamp, in the hands of a publisher, I would have been able to get something. Especially, when you see even the quality of Illustrator now that Image has, didn't get out. I don't know, maybe I was just not focused enough. Maybe I didn't apply myself. I still put pressure on myself now for whatever level of success that I'm not attaining. It's still more so my fault than anybody else's. So after, I guess, a couple of those stories, like the illustrator who was with Vamp 5 Vamp was amazing. I still love those pages. It's a nice 10-page one short, but it ain't the full story, But the illustrator got a job working with MTV and never looked back, right? And he gave me an amazing rate, This was 2009, 10, somewhere around that. He gave me an amazing rate. Even for then, it was amazing. So I didn't finish the story. Then I had another illustrator did the Blackjack origin story. He was his first sequential joint. He did me a solid, and even though I paid him, it was still an amazing rate. He only did 10 pages, right? It was a complete story. Then I did Halloween, and I was ready. It was going to be more. It was going to be full 25-page storybook. The illustrator, I can't continue to do this rate. I can only do you 10 pages. And he left it inked. And I didn't have a colorist. And the page rate was okay. I don't even pay that now for inking or for coloring. So it was the highest rate I had paid at the time. Paid all of it. Never got the story finished until I found a colorist in the quarantine, and he finished coloring the pages, and I found an artist who, at the time, I wanted it to be a 4-issue run. It ended up being a 30 or 35-page story, like a big book, right? So that's where I got that from. And beyond that, I got into the quarantine and started writing other stories, and I started buying other black comics, and I kind of always did that, right? I remember early on when I first went to my first Ekbok, and I bought a bunch of comics. I wasn't even thinking about it. It was a few of us. It wasn't thousands, lots of us now like it seems. You only, it wasn't the internet where you was looking at everybody like you are now. It's ridiculous now. It's amazing. I'm loving it. But what happened was I started realizing, especially with some of these new guys, they weren't finishing stories. You know what I'm saying? They were coming out with not even one-shots, straight incomplete stories that, we'll finish it when we get to issue 2. And I was like, golly, I'm buying their book. Now I'm like, I need to finish this, I want to finish the story. And I know you want to bait me into second book, but at some point you got to finish the story because I bought something, and if I do, then, I'll buy the second one, but you have it finished. Some cats ran out of money. Some cats only had the vision to kind of do one book at a time, and you wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, and it's, I got the second book, and I'm like, you're killing me. Now, mind you, that's what happened to me in the quarantine, but my artist got COVID. I got an artist working on something now that has been impacted by COVID 3 times, so yeah, but understand, none of that was the plan, and even with the books, when I started realizing that, these situations was going to happen, my stories kind of wrap up a little bit and give you some closure in each book, but, that's been my goal, and I'm 3 years and I got 4 issues, right? So I'm kind of good, but yeah, I don't even think it's 3 years. Might be less if I look at when we started doing it. Might have been less than that, but it is crazy when I think of some of these writers that, black and white. It ain't just white people. Even some of the black creators I know are having these stories that don't finish. And I just think it's really, there's nothing wrong when you grew up reading ongoing series, no doubt. But I think independent writers, let me say this, independent creators have to create ongoing stories differently, straight up. Because even major publishing companies, I remember I got, Zenoscope out of Philly. They were notorious for not finishing their stories. And that, to me, was very irritating. I would go to the comic book store and be like, nah, they didn't, it's gonna be discontinued. And when I started getting those, I might have got it once or twice. For me, I'm not a big Marvel DC reader. I read mostly independents, from Image, from IDW, Boom. Those are really good. My favorite company was Radical, and they went out, they're not in business anymore. But I used to love Radical because they used to say, this is a 1 of 4, this is a 1 of 6, and they would have it done. And then at the end of the run, they would put it all together, and it would be a full book. And I was like, for me, that's going to be my goal. I really don't want to do any of these other books that, don't finish, because I don't like that feeling as a reader. And I say that is impossible. Stories continue. When you look at these series now, right? Like I watched The Equalizer with Queen Latifah. It progresses, but every story is separate. The characters, the relationships between her daughter and her aunt, they progress, but each story, each episode ends. Same thing like I'm watching Poker Face now. I love that. I think what happened was we was in this era of shows like Lost and Heroes, which personally I didn't like because of what was happening. That he's had these long story arcs that left each episode incomplete. I mean, I think The Walking Dead does that, but I think there's more completion, and they definitely don't have, only those type of situations, because they may get trapped. I think people learn from Lost, because I think Lost played that out. But the problem, I think, is, comic book people just never got the memo. Seems like there's some great series runs, but they're not one shots, and they're not ending. You know what I'm saying? So what happens? This guy changes. You get left hanging. That's inconsiderate to your readers. You get a job somewhere else, you blow up. Now I'll make another Ant Legs story. No apology to the fans of Ant Legs. Ant Legs is hanging on a cliff, you understand, somewhere waiting to be finished written. That's disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? Like my Fingernail series, I wanted to go, right? But my illustrator is, working part-time, and he's not even able to get a book dang on there, seems like once a year. So I have to wait, you know what I'm saying? Now, for me, I get, so I wrote the story to be complete. The second one is complete. It's a progress, but it's almost episodic. It's straight another adventure of Gilligan's Island, It ain't part one, it ain't part two. Yeah, there's one that starts it all off, but that's that. What I decided to do is I commissioned some other illustrators to do some shorter stories that just, build off of the characters. I went back and did some origin stories of the characters, and I'm working with that. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, the main illustrator is part-time. So again, that's where I'm at. But I'm feeding my crave of my fans and the people who enjoy it. They want another Fingernails book out, and I hope to get it out this year. I have probably 8 pages that I can use, and then I'm doing some other little drops in there. So the book is about half done, but I'm waiting on another illustrator who's on time. He's on pace, But there you have it, especially when you're working with independent and part-time illustrators. They're not doing a page a day. This ain't Marvel. You can't get a book out every month. So, I mean, even if you put on your book quarterly, sheesh. But, one book every something years with hard cliffhangers, that's hard. That's tough. I think that's inconsiderate. Also, story length. A lot of writers, I guess, in my research, just reading, some of these writers probably don't know how to write a short story. And understand, comics are just like novels. They have lengths. Science fiction, fantasy books, 100,000 words. Everything else around 60 to 70,000. You go over 70,000, now you're pushing it, right? Better have, some amazing story like movies. You go 2-3 hours, it better be Endgame, it better be Wakanda, because they even gonna complain if it's Avatar. You know what I'm saying? So you better leave them 3 hours stories alone to keep you in an hour and a half, And then there's things called short film. There's things called short, comic book stories. Comic books had comic strips. They, Family Circle used to tell the whole story in one picture, one panel. Then you had comic strips, 6 or 7 panels. That's it. 2 pages, 12 panels. I've written 1-page stories, right? I put them in their ads. I used to do them for companies that want to advertise in my comic books. So I used to do that. I have short stories. I pasted after Tales from the Crypt. And they still have horror stories that's told short. Look at Vampirella, right? She's Vampiress or whatever. They've got selling in Barnes and Nobles. 10-page stories. Do it. And complete. And good. Shoot, I did in my last book, the Cyberpunk Streets, The Ass Doctor. It's amazing. I did in 8 or 9 pages, right? Programmable Man, I did it in 6, 7 pages. Come on, you can do it. And it can be amazingly interesting. The Ass Doctor is amazing. I read that story over and over again, and it gets better every time I read it, especially even the Banger Brothers. So yeah, it can be done. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to talk about, comic book story, finish the story. Let's not do these short cliffhangers. It's ridiculous. They don't do it in books. They don't do it in movies. So why do we have it in comic books? All right, that's it. Jeff Carroll, Sci-Fi Express Lane. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. All right, I'm out.